successful area for them.
3rd and 2 out of the backfield. It's Hill. Oh, he got by one. 3rd down 8. Going deep, and he has the completion. Into 6 defensive backs. He'll swing one to the 10. It's Hill holding on.
Hey guys, Eric Smith here, 5 Reasons Sports contributor, also co-host of Scouting the Fins. You can find that on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel and also the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast feed. We are back again with my weekly offensive line grades for the Miami Dolphins. This one's going to be the Week 9 game versus the Ravens. And listed here are the 5 players that played on the offensive line on Thursday night, and the numbers in parentheses are their grades so far this season. It might come as a little bit of a surprise that the overall grade came in at a 5.34, which wasn't all that different than the game against the Falcons, where everybody thought the offensive line did really well, and they did okay, but they weren't spectacular. And that was kind of the same performance that we got against the Ravens. My grading does not account for the timing of some of the issues. So when we talk about the false start from Larry Borom on a key 3rd down, that doesn't get weighted any heavier than a false start at any other point in the game. But overall, there wasn't a lot of just awful individual losses, and that's an improvement from earlier in the season. But in the game against the Ravens, even though the offensive line performance was kind of the same as what it was against the Falcons, we did not get the same performance from some of the other positions, and that was on both sides of the ball, and that kind of is what resulted in a game that snowballed at the end there. But overall, I thought the offensive line played, just okay against the Ravens. Not, certainly room to be better, but we have seen far worse performances throughout this season. Like we always do, we are going to work from the lowest graded player to the highest. So our lowest graded player this week was Larry Borom, and he had put together some solid grades as far as individual grades go, but I was highlighting in those reviews that he was very much protected in those games, and that wasn't the case as much versus the Ravens, and he was exposed to an extent. When I look over, some of the grades that he had here, and where he struggled, it surprisingly was not in the passing game, but there was a game, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago where they basically refused to run to the right side, and it had gotten a little more balanced. And then this week they ran, a decent amount to the right side. And of the 6 times that I have the Dolphins charted as running outside zone to the right side, I had Larry Borom as at least partially negative on 4 out of those 6. And then he had the key false start on the 3rd down play that Mike McDaniel was very animated about. And there was another one that was later in the game. I think it might have actually been called on Cole Strange, but it was both Larry Borom and Patrick Paul were the culprits. So I gave them the negative marks in my grading. So the combination of, just not being good enough in outside runs to the right and a couple of false start penalties is how we end up with a 2.82 for Larry Borom this week. Our next lowest graded player is going to be left guard Jonah Savaiinaea, coming in at a 4.10, similar to his grade last week, almost an average grade, which would be a 5.00. You can see it's an improvement over his season grade. A guy that's trending in the right direction. He's still not playing great. He's not playing up to even an average offensive line level. But when we look at some of his early season grades, a 4.10 is definitely a step in the right direction for him. Looking at where he struggled in this game, as usual for Jonah, a lot of it was in pass protection, either 5-0 protections where it's 5 offensive linemen on 5 defenders, or when the protection was getting slid away from him. I would say that the big jump for Jonah this week is that I didn't have any that I graded him as a full 0. And there were some that could be argued, but for me, I had them all at least as a half a point in terms of credit, and that's a big improvement for him because he kind of has that Liam Eichenberg thing where he may play good or okay for most of the game, but have those really obvious ones that are highlighted on the broadcast and stuff like that. Didn't really feel like he had any of those this week, so that contributed to him getting close to an average grade. And I think that this is a guy that's still continuing to trend in the right direction overall, something that we can continue to track as this, whatever the season looks like as it goes on. Next up, we're going to have the right guard, and that's going to be Cole Strange coming in at 6.07. This is his second week in a row of having a slightly above average grade. You can see that's a lot better than his season average of the 2.77. And, really a similar game to Jonas Avainaya overall in terms of, not a great game, not going to find a whole lot of highlight plays for Cole Strange here, but another player that I did not have any full negative grades for was kind of evenly split between run and pass issues. Had two of those six outside zone runs to the right, had him marked partially negative as well, and then of the four pass plays that I had him marked at least marked partially negative on. None of them were zeros. Three out of those four were when the protection was slid to the left, so he'd have been left one on one to the right side. And then next up is going to be the always steady Aaron Brewer coming in 6.71, very close to his season average of a 6.62. As I look through the grades that I had for him, wasn't anything that really stood out. Just a couple things here or there, and you're always going to have that with Aaron Brewer being a smaller center. He's never going to be a perfect player. Going to do some things really really well. He's going to grade better, I think, most times in PFF grades than he will in mine, because PFF gives a bit of a boost for some of those highlight type of plays that I don't give in mine. Mine values more consistency over splash plays. Nothing wrong with that, but this 6.71 pushing up into that 7.0 range is about where is normal for Aaron Brewer, and that's exactly what this game was, just kind of a average game for Aaron Brewer. And then coming in on top once again is Patrick Paul with an 8.66. You can see that's better than his 6.56 season average. He's had a bit of a roller coaster season. So sometimes he's up in the 9 range, and other times he's down in the 5 range, averaging out to the 6.56. That 8.66 came in. Result talked about the false start that I don't think was called on him, but I still marked him down for it in my grading. And there was a play late in the game where protection was slid to the right and Kyle Van Noy beat him pretty good. But those were the only two negative plays that I had for Patrick Paul throughout the entire game. So good game overall for him, and continuing to trend in the direction of a Pro Bowl caliber offensive tackle. All right, so as you can see, we have the really high graded player, the really low graded player, and then some players in between coming out to, what averages out to a little bit above an average individual offensive grade for the team grade. As we get into the film portion of it, I got a new drawing pad, so we're going to try that out. Not sure how it's going to go. Probably going to be a little ugly here for a little bit, but hopefully it adds to what I'm able to share with you guys as we're doing the film reviews and going through some of these plays. All right, like I said, new pen here, so it's going to be kind of clunky, but we are going to get outside zone to the right on this play. And what you're going to see is that when that motion goes, that Kyle Hamilton is going to step up. He's going to get penetration, and he's going to be a big part of the reason that Devon Achane has to cut that back, right? Outside zone to the right. There's Hamilton cutting it back. Now what I want you to look at here is that if we're talking about blocking assignments for outside zone, that Dan Brunskill is covered to this edge player. Larry Borum is uncovered, so he's going to look to combo with Brunskill. He's basically going to protect the inside gap there. The two of them are going to work up to Kyle Hamilton. Depending on where he would go would be whether Larry Borum works to him or Dan Brunskill works to him. So it's basically creating a 2v2 scenario here, and then we're working up there, right? Everybody's working to their play side zone, if that's what it is. But what we get is that with the motion, that, all right, let's pause it there. You can see now how that picture has changed now based on where the players are when that ball was snapped. Now our covered uncovered rules change. Now Brunskill's still covered, right? So he's still got this guy there. And Borum is still uncovered, right? But there's nobody out here for him to work to. Kyle Hamilton is walking up, making Cole Strange covered. So he should get the combo here essentially through Hamilton up to Roquan Smith here. And now our combination block should be working there, and everybody else is working through. But what you'll see is that Borum continues to work to the outside here with nobody out here, and that means that Cole Strange is not able to get a good angle here, and that's where Kyle Hamilton's able to get into the backfield, and then we end up having to cut this back into a defender who is unblocked on the backside, which is, what the design of the play is. But, you know, looking at this again, watch Borum, right? He's going to the outside there, nothing there. If he gets vertical here, we are still able to run this right through the C gap lane there. But Borum stays to the outside, ends up blocking nobody at all, and this play ends up getting tackled for a short gain as a result. All right, so next play here, this is going to be a 3rd and 6 where they end up running the ball. And it's kind of a neat play design where they show inside zone to Ollie Gordon, but they bring Achane around on the outside zone run. And what you're going to have here, I think, is what should be a combo between Borum and Tanner Connor working up to Kyle Hamilton. But what you're going to get is that Tanner Connor doesn't help at all and goes straight to Kyle Hamilton. So now you're asking Larry Borum to get outside and win the edge versus a very wide 9 defensive end. That's going to be a tough ask, almost no matter what right tackle, but especially Larry Borum. And then you're also going to see when Achane comes in motion that we're going to get Kyle Hamilton sliding over here. Roquan Smith is going to slant to the inside. And we're going to get Kyle Hamilton up there. So Cole Strange, who right now is looking like he's covered to Roquan Smith, has to be able to adjust and move to the next level, right? And we're getting Aaron Brewer working over. So just lots of stuff happening on here with the motion that they don't react to very well. But the biggest thing, right, if you're going to try to run to the edge on this, and I don't know why you would on a 3rd and 6, just, I don't know, didn't make a whole lot of sense. But you can't leave Larry Borum one-on-one trying to get to the outside here. And there you can see. So let's start with Cole Strange here first. If I can get this video play. There we go. Right, you can see Kyle Hamilton is bouncing with that. And now Roquan sliding to the inside. Strange is a little bit late getting to Kyle Hamilton here. And now he's getting penetration. So that's on its own making Achane take that wider. Maybe in a perfect scenario, if we pick this up, then Achane can cut it through there, and having Larry Borum block out makes a little more sense here. But if the goal is to get to the outside, then I really think that you need to have Tanner Connor helping through there, through that shoulder to let Larry Borum take it and then get to the outside. But I mean, I guess the more that I look at this, and when I look at where Larry Borum's head placement is here, doesn't look to me like he's necessarily trying to get to the outside. If he was, I think he'd be getting a little deeper here. Helmet would try to get to the right side. I think he may have been trying to kick this out, that they're trying to get Tanner Connor with that motion to get to the outside, and that if we win that here, then we're getting through the B gap and possibly able to get vertical, for the first down. So I, kind of like the creativity here, but execution just really didn't work out very well in the end. All right, next play here. First, going to rewind it a little bit. Want you to look at what they come out here with Brunskill, Ingold, both in the eye. They're going to shift out of it. It would be fun to see if they do something with that in the future. Ingold returns to the I formation here. And what we're going to get is, so this is going to be an inside zone to the right. I think they're looking to cut it back, but should have had a seal there with a combo here out to Hamilton, a combo here up to Roquan Smith, a seal on the backside, and then Ingold leading through number 40. And that's what creates your cutback look there. So, but you'll see that now Hamilton runs up here and changes the picture completely. So now you can't necessarily have Strange comboing there and working out to Hamilton. So what needs to happen is we need to get a call to fan this out, to get Borum out to here, Strange out to here. Brewer turns into a solo block just trying to keep him over there. And then on the backside, we can still get the combo block here, still cut it off there, and then still bring Ingold through and still have that cutback lane. But this fan never happens. So we're going to see Kyle Hamilton being able to come through and make the play. Right? And that's what you're seeing there. Borum never gets to the outside. He sticks with that defender, chases him to the inside. Strange steps to the inside a little bit there before he fans out. Strange eventually gets there. Brewer allows this 2-eye technique over here to cross his face. Right, not the worst thing in the world, but the biggest thing here is just Borum not recognizing this and not getting to the outside. From the snap of the ball here, right, if we get, let's get back to the pen, if we can get back to it, there we go, right, if we get that block and we get that block, this guy's slanting across, right, so you're getting Brewer there. Not a great look, but we can at least get something staying to the front side here. Even if Roquan Smith is going to step up and fill there, right? You know, maybe you get Jonah sliding here, and as we're running through the A gap, we're able to slice it back, or maybe you just get, you know, 3-4 yards in there. But the result of not blocking Hamilton at all is that he's able to come through untouched. You can see where that lane's kind of developing there if Brewer can get that seal, but Hamilton makes the play in the backfield, and it is for a loss. And then just a good one here. So this is, you know, back to a play that we've seen a couple of times. Just want to highlight it again. This is a, you know, off the outside zone tree, but it's just a fold scheme where we block out there, we pin with the guards here, and then we're going to get both Brewer coming around, and Patrick Paul coming around. Before Patrick Paul would get through here, on this one you can see it gets kind of clogged up, so he gets a little wider with it, and then we just get Achane getting through there. So again, just, you know, quick one here. There's our two seal blocks, right? Seal into the outside. Patrick Paul, Aaron Brewer getting around the edge, and Achane through. So again, something we talked about the last 2 weeks. Love this fold concept. Would like to keep it in the playbook. Very simple, easy to execute, and get some of our better offensive line athletes in space. This is going to be a short yardage situation. It was 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2. Running inside zone here to the left side with split flow action. So that split flow action just means that Tanner Connor, who was on the front side of it, is going to come across, and he would get the defender back here. We are getting a solo block from Patrick Paul here, which means that we should be getting a combo block between Savaiinaya and Brewer up to 0. And then we're just cutting off here. But what we're going to see here is that number 98 makes a great play here. His pad level just wins at the point of attack. And that's what we're going to see. Right? Look at where his pad level is now, and he's essentially going to create a pile, and would have liked to be able to get Jonah climbing up to Roquan Smith with Aaron Brewer, you know, kind of occupying it there, right? We just get a body on a body, and maybe we can squeeze something through there. But because that defensive tackle is so low, and he's able to, you know, get Jonah essentially on the ground there, now Roquan's able to run through, make a free play, and stop him on a 3rd and short scenario. This one here is just a simple outside zone play. So it's going to be outside zone to the right. So covered, uncovered principles. Larry Borum is covered. Cole Strange is uncovered. So he is going to look to combo. And, it kind of looks funny, but we see him do this fairly often where he's going to basically chase to the outside and then would late be trying to get back there. Makes it a tough block for Brewer. And then we're going to get Jonah and Paul working up to those two defenders there. But what we're going to end up seeing as the play develops here is that number one, tough block for Aaron Brewer on this one technique. Right, he's dropping, he's winning position, but he's not going to be able to create that vertical movement that we want. You can see Strange kind of getting lost there as he's working to the outside, like I said that he would. Right, Borum is able to run out here aggressively. Strange's eyes are out there, just making sure he doesn't spike to the inside. He should be looking vertical to number 40, but he's looking all the way back before he gets there again late. So from this one, right, would it either rather see Strange help out with Patrick Aaron Brewer and then climb to 40 and make this more of a front side A gap run, or if he's going to sprint to the outside here to Borum, then just go ahead and basically shove that entire pile and try to widen out this A B gap here before you climb to the to the right defender. If we can widen number 90 here a little more, then maybe we can get Achane downhill. But that doesn't happen. And just another scenario where we're not getting the shifts here, but we need to be able to figure out how to sort this out and be able to run outside zone in a scenario where we have numbers that favor us. And then a couple more plays here. This one going to be not an offensive line issue, so this is going to be a counter solid. So essentially what we're going to have is that everybody here is going to block down. And Paul actually does a little bit extra because even though that defender's not down, he kind of pulls him down with him. And what we're going to get is that our F and our Y are the ones that are responsible for the counter. One is a kick out and one is a lead. But what we're going to see is that as Kyle Hamilton moves up to the edge here, he becomes what should be the kick out guy. You get Alec Ingold leading through, which leads me to believe that Tanner Connor should be coming across and kicking out there so that we can get the counter and get through there. But nobody blocks the best defender on the Ravens defense. There you can see him walking up. You can see how Patrick Paul, as he's stepping down there, throws that left hook out there to pull him down, which gives Ingold the path to get through. And then you get Tanner Connor leading up. Everything else is accounted for. We've got the receiver coming down there. We've got the fullback getting to the Mike linebacker. Nobody is blocking Kyle Hamilton on the edge here. So it looks to me as though Tanner Connor should be right here, right? He should be kicking out right there, and then we open up this lane right there for a big gain. And that's, I can't guarantee that Tanner Connor is the kick out man because we've also seen it from the Dolphins where this front side guy gets down here and seals, and then our puller is the one that leads and folds back around. So I can't pin it completely on Tanner Connor, but that's what it looks to me. But I included this one in an offensive line review video because this is an example of, offensive line is doing exactly what they are supposed to, but, because the skill players can't sort out that edge player, we end up with another tackle for loss. And then last one here, this is going to be the intentional grounding from Tua. Ugly, ugly play. But, and I don't blame him a ton because the Dolphins have not done a good job picking up blitzes in the past. But what I want you to look at here, and it kind of explains why Tua, threw this away, is that, you've got five-man protection. Achane and Connor both go out on a pass. So you've got two to the right? You have one defender here, two defender. So it makes sense that we would go with a slide left protection, right? We're man on the right side, and then everybody here is sliding over, right? The problem is that they bring, I believe that defender comes over, but the big problem is they bring a defender in from out there off the edge. So Tua knows that defender is completely unblocked, right? So, hard to blame him for letting it fly. He knows that defender should be unblocked. Would like to see him be able to use that athleticism a little bit and, maybe try to get out there and make something happen. But the big thing that I want you to notice here is that, and I guess that defender actually doesn't come across Brewer's face, but even though we're in a slide left protection, the offensive line actually does a good job of sliding back to the right side. Bourne picks up the edge, or Strange picks up that edge defender. Bourne gets out there and gets, just a little bit on Kyle Hamilton, enough that it should have given Tua an opportunity to make something happen. So I like this adjustment from the offensive line, not within the design of the play, but did a good job of picking up a blitz that they haven't been able to do in the past. We've seen these edge players come in and, get free hits on Tua. So kind of understand why he would panic and, throw the ball away. Would like to see it be done in a way that doesn't result in a intentional grounding, but thought this was worth highlighting from the offensive line's perspective, that it does show a little bit of growth in the ability to pick up, that backside free rusher, which they haven't been able to do in the past. All right, that's going to wrap up the film review this week, as well as the offensive line grades. Let me know what you think of the new pen. Does it help? Does it create more confusion? I imagine that if I continue to use it, that I will get better with it as we go. As of recording of this, there was the trade of Jalen Phillips to the Philadelphia Eagles for the third. Not going to get into that, a whole lot on this video, not the purpose of this one. But, maybe back later this week if there are additional moves, either, guys coming to the Dolphins, guys leaving the Dolphins, that type of thing, especially if it is offensive line focused. I'm sure we'll have something else on here. But for now, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. If you have anything to add or disagree with that you want to on the offensive line, feel free to add it here. Come over on X, find me at OLCoachSmith63, and let's keep the the positive conversations going throughout the season, around this offensive line.
And a big run right here by H.M. Breaking tackles, downfield he goes.
Not a successful area for them.
3rd and 2 out of the backfield. It's Hill. Oh, he got by 1. 3rd down 8. Going deep, and he has the completion. Into 6 defensive backs. He'll swing one to the 10. It's Hill holding on for dear